Welcome to the Module 9 team in service. When you think of conflict situations you experienced, which words come to mind? How does conflict make you feel? Can you think of a time when you were on a team and conflict occurred? What happened? What are your experiences of team conflict? When you think of conflict, do you see it played out in a violent and aggressive manner, or do you perceive it more as a disagreement between two people? A conflict is a disagreement through which the parties involved perceive a threat to their well-being. For example, their needs, interests, physical or emotional status, or concerns. Let's analyze the concept of conflict. What is the cause of the disagreement? What is the argument about? What is the true versus the perceived disagreement? Who are the parties involved and why are they involved? Do they even know? Do they take sides? Do they influence the process? What are the real issues versus the perceived threat? What are the needs, interests, or concerns? We may need to address not just the presenting issue, but the psychological impact. This quote by Mahatma Gandhi is more reflective of the types of conflict you are likely to see between members of a high-functioning interprofessional team. Honest disagreement is often a good sign of progress. Conflict positive is a term that may be used to interpret differences of opinion as healthy and to be encouraged as constructive interactions. The events that lead to differences of opinion can come from positive and negative sources, but if we interpret those differences of opinion as positive, it can lead to a positive outcome more easily. Conflict can help identify a problem. For example, the system used to work, but something has changed and now needs to be adjusted to suit the situation. Conflict helps to define and examine our values. Conflict can result in replacing redundant ways of doing things for more efficient approaches that incorporate new evidence, best practices, and new technologies. There are many causes or triggers of conflict between co-workers. Some stem from the workplace environment, but most are seated within ourselves. We have conflicting resources such as office supplies, assistance from colleagues, office space, and technical knowledge. We all have conflicting or different styles and needs, as identified in tools such as the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator. We all perceive the world differently, depending on our experience, knowledge, memories, and values. These perceptions of events can cause conflict as people will make up their own minds about a situation. Communication is key to avoid this. Conflicting goals can be an issue where there may be requests for different priorities, speed of completion, and detail level. It is helpful to ensure that when you request goals, you are clear and considerate about other work already requested. Conflicting pressures may arise. When you need urgent assistance from someone who already has tasks set with the same deadlines, try to reschedule or negotiate the deadlines accordingly. Conflicting roles is of concern if we are asked to perform a task outside of our normal role or responsibility, or if we are asked to do something that should be someone else's responsibility. This can cause power struggles. Communication of expectations is important to alleviate conflict. Each of us has different personal values. If you are asked to complete a task that conflicts with your ethical standards, conflict can arise. If we work in an environment of unpredictable policies, confusion can occur. If rules and policy changes aren't communicated, or if policies aren't consistent or practiced fairly across the group, we encounter conflict situations. Regardless of how well a team functions, there will always be sources of team conflict. Possible sources of conflict within an interprofessional team come from limited resources, differences in values, beliefs, and interests, misinformation, and power. What might these sources look like in the workplace? Conflict in an interprofessional team could be the result of limited resources such as job stress related to poor staffing or inadequate support, and could also be because of poor leadership. Differences in values, beliefs, and interests could come in the form of differences in professional values, perspectives, or status, and this is where professional turf wars may be evident. Turf wars occur when professions protect their professional knowledge, roles, and responsibilities. They are not willing to share professional insights into patient care or learn about other professions, and they may also use exclusionary jargon. Differences may be evident in the overlap in professional roles and functions, in inadequate team structures or processes, or in interpersonal differences such as working style, personality, culture, maturity, or values. The Canadian Interprofessional Health Collaborative's National Interprofessional Competency Framework states that conflicts can arise from roles, over differing accountability issues, perceptions of role overloads or role ambiguity, and from differences related to goals because of dissimilar philosophies towards care, personal religious or spiritual beliefs, and professional socialization that includes differing approaches to care. These can arise because of differing values and styles, as well as personality traits among healthcare providers. Misinformation could be because of a lack of information or communication misunderstandings. Power differentials are demonstrated by positional power that would be held by a manager or influential power that may be held by someone other than the person in authority. You may have come across a co-worker who held power over certain things that they didn't necessarily have authority over. Disagreements generally relate to real and perceived power and hierarchy in interprofessional relationships. Team members must identify issues that are likely conflict triggers. We realize team conflict is inevitable, but categorizing arguments into positive or negative can determine how we decide to deal with the situation. If the conflict were positive, we would encourage it to continue because it is beneficial to the team. Negative conflict is damaging to team function and should be prevented from continuing. Negative outcomes of team conflict include personal stress, strained relationships, interprofessional tensions, team dysfunction, reduced communication, and increased risk of error or reduced safety in patient care. Whereas positive outcomes can unearth underlying team problems, create an opportunity to learn about self and others, become an opportunity for new perspectives, can generate creativity, innovation, energy, excitement, and can strengthen team cohesion. Unless the cycle is broken, discord continues from escalating disagreements, creating pained disengagement of individuals. This progresses to hidden pain and causes recurring triggers that perpetuate the cycle of conflict. Incidences of observed common responses to conflict are charted here. Passive resistance is the most likely behavior when faced with conflict, whereas verbal aggression is the least common. Between these two extremes are various types of responses, but all may ultimately be damaging to team dynamics. When you think of conflict situations you have found yourself in, have you noticed if you have a certain default response, one that you always are drawn to? Do you tend to respond the same way to different types of conflicts? Why do you think that is? Our own responses to conflict are developed over many years of observing and learning behaviours experienced. We don't often examine why certain triggers make us react in a particular way to conflict situations. Dealing with conflict starts at an individual level. We use attitudes and tendencies that can be authoritative, magical thinking, solution finding, and avoiding as we manage conflict situations. Committing to managing yourself before managing others will make situations more controllable. Emotions such as uncertainty, ambiguity, and paradoxes are founded in our values, interests, and needs. They are dependent upon our culture and that of our organization, and we often put informal structures in place to reduce conflict. Your abilities and competencies are learned strategies that can reduce the negative impact of conflict and can always be improved upon. Knowing your team roles and responsibilities will help you appreciate your level of informal and formal power. Managing yourself in potential conflict situations can impact the outcome. Our emotions are signals of how we feel. Their intensity is a measure of the importance of a situation or issue. They allow us to identify our triggers, and they reflect the importance of the relationship. We can use 3 separate steps to manage emotions. Step 1. Observe your emotions. How do you feel? What is going through your mind? How do emotions reveal themselves to others? What signs do we show that tell others how we feel? Step 2. Identify the triggers of your emotions. What are the events and people, and what is the historical context, the facts and assumptions that trigger our responses to conflict? Step 3. Identify the causes or issues of these emotions. What do we see as values, competency, relationship, and survival? When conflict does exist, the consideration is either managing it or resolving it. Conflict management is the process of recognizing and dealing with disagreements in a positive manner. Conflict resolution is the processes of assisting the peaceful end of a conflict. Conflict is inevitable, therefore difficult conversations are also inevitable. On high-functioning teams, demonstrations of conflict usually take the form of disagreements that arise from opposing perspectives. Discussions facilitate the exploration of possible outcomes that result in shared decision-making related to a shared plan of care. Opposing opinions in conflict situations have 3 possible outcomes. Both parties win, in a win-win situation. One party wins at the expense of the other party, or both parties lose out. When the parties are looking for personal gain in the win-lose scenario of a conflict situation, they will exert their power until one wins and the other loses. When the parties choose to put aside their actual or perceived power and enter as equals, the conflict resolution outcome is goal-focused and it becomes a win-win result. Both parties choose to work collaboratively to reach a solution that benefits the goal of their project. In the case of the interprofessional team, the goal is always the goal of the client-patient family. Therefore, both parties are working to better the client-patient family health outcome rather than trying to win for themselves. When parties put aside their personal interests in conflict resolution to make the client-patient family goals the central component, the power base shifts to create a collaborative approach to shared decision-making. There are several different models that can be used to deal with conflict. The Thomas Kilmann conflict model describes different approaches to dealing with conflict. This model focuses on the importance of the relationship and of the issue. This week's Team Huddle video explains the Thomas Kilmann grid and how different approaches will lead to different outcomes of conflict resolution. Let's take a quick look here, but I encourage you to watch the short video that provides a very good explanation. Note the 5 boxes or styles. They are competing, collaborating, compromising, avoiding, and accommodating. These are the most common approaches to dealing with conflict. The focus of the Thomas Kilmann model is on the importance of the relationship and of the issue. When the relationship is more important, it is more likely that the response will be more cooperative. As we move towards collaboration and accommodation, we demonstrate more caring about the other person's needs. The greater the importance of the issue, the more likely the response will be more assertive. Increasing the competing approach and using assertive strategies will move you further to getting what you want. Note the 5 boxes or styles. Note the assertiveness axis. How willing are you to deal with this issue? Note the cooperativeness axis. How willing are you to work with someone on a solution? Thank you for attending this in-service. You should find the information helpful when you watch the Team Huddle video of the Thomas Kilmann model for approaches to conflict. Consider your new knowledge when you address the questions of the Module 9 case scenario and the unfolding scenario questions in the coming weeks. You will also be able to apply what you've learned in this in-service to the Test Your Knowledge quizzes and activities. See you at the next in-service and have a great nursing shift.